You hear the name Sun Tzu, and what comes to mind? Probably some mystical ancient god of war, right? But what if I told you the real Master Sun was less of a warrior and more of a ruthless efficiency expert? In this explainer, we're going to go way beyond the battlefield to find the analyst behind the art of war, and you'll see why his ideas are more critical now than ever before. Yeah, we tend to think of Sun Tzu as this legendary figure, all about the glory of combat. The reality? It's actually far more interesting. He was a pragmatic analyst, absolutely obsessed with efficiency. And his ancient ideas? They're basically a blueprint for navigating our pretty chaotic modern world. Okay, so here's the game plan. We're gonna start by uncovering who he really was. Then we'll dive into his core philosophy, winning without fighting. We'll unpack why knowing yourself is just as vital as knowing your enemy. We'll get into his ideas on dynamic strategy. And finally, we'll see exactly how you can apply all of this today. All right, so let's get right into it. Who was the man we call Master Sun? Because honestly, to really get his masterpiece, you have to understand the world that made him. First things first, let's talk about that name. Sun Tzu isn't actually his name. It's a title. It just means Master Sun. His real name was Sun Wu. So right off the bat, we're talking about a real person, not a myth. Now this slide is absolutely crucial to understanding him. The timing. Sun Wu lived during what's called the Spring and Autumn period. This wasn't one big unified empire. It was a messy, multipolar world full of competing states all fighting for an edge. Sound familiar? It looks a whole lot more like our modern world of competing companies and nations than the stable empire that came much later. So you've got this environment of just constant high-stakes competition. And that created what you could call a strategic Big Bang. Thinking strategically wasn't some academic exercise, it was a survival skill. And that's exactly why the art of war is so practical. Once the empire was unified hundreds of years later, this kind of strategic thinking actually started to fade away. They didn't need cleverness anymore. They needed control. All right, now let's get to his most famous idea, and probably his most misunderstood one. This is where we really see him not as a warrior, but as that efficiency expert I was talking about. Okay, so we've all heard this one, right? But let's be super clear, this isn't about being a pacifist. Not at all. It's about pure, ruthless cost-benefit analysis. Sun Tzu saw actual fighting as a huge waste of resources. He called it the domain of life and death, and just the least efficient way to get something done. You see, the real goal here isn't to just blow everything up. It's what he called intelligent submission. Why would you destroy a city that you're just gonna have to rebuild? Why would you wipe out an army when you could absorb its soldiers? The ultimate win is getting exactly what you want while keeping all the assets, yours and theirs, completely intact. And this thinking is everywhere in modern business once you start looking for it. Take the blue ocean strategy. Cirque du Soleil didn't try to make a better circus. They just created a whole new game where they were the only players. Or look at Microsoft buying LinkedIn. Why spend years and billions fighting a rival when you can just buy them and absorb their entire network without firing a single shot? That's pure Sun Tzu. So if winning without a fight is the goal, how do you actually get there? Well, the path is through deep, unbiased knowledge. And this is where we find his other most famous piece of advice. Yeah, most of us know that first line about knowing your enemy and yourself. But the full version? It's basically a formula. Know both and you're set. Know only yourself, your chances are a coin flip, a total crapshoot. But know neither, you are guaranteed to lose every single time. It's a pretty stark warning. And this is what's so fascinating. Sun Tzu is basically warning us that ignoring yourself is just as deadly as ignoring your opponent. You see, companies spend millions on competitive analysis, but then they collapse from the inside because of a terrible culture or broken systems that everyone's afraid to talk about. They ignored themselves. And this just applies so perfectly to our everyday lives. Think about a job interview, right? Knowing the enemy, that's you researching the company. But knowing yourself, that's having the self-awareness to understand your own weaknesses and have a smart answer ready. Or a coach, they can study the other team's plays all day, but if they don't know their own star player is exhausted, all that knowledge is useless. All right, the last big piece of the puzzle. Sun Tzu teaches us that a plan isn't some sacred text you have to follow no matter what. It's more like a dynamic dance with a reality that is always changing. First step, fluidity. He famously talked about being like water. Think about it. Water doesn't have a fixed shape. It flows around things, it fills any container it's put in. A winning strategy, he argued, has to do the exact same thing. It has to adapt to the shape of the problem. Next up is timing. And for Sun Tzu, speed wasn't about just rushing in. No, it was about striking at the perfect, decisive moment. That one window of opportunity when your opponent is unprepared, or distracted, or just getting lazy. And number 3, surprise. Or maybe a better word is unpredictability. Sun Tzu warns you, never repeat a winning tactic. Why? Simple. Because the second you become predictable, you become easy to beat. The idea is to always keep them guessing. And again, you see this stuff everywhere in the modern world. Think about the startup pivot. Did you know YouTube was originally meant to be a video dating site? Seriously. But the founders were fluid. They saw how people were really using it and adapted. Or look at agile project management. That's basically Sun Tzu for software. Instead of a rigid 5-year plan, teams work in short sprints, constantly adapting to reality. It's all about fluidity over dogma. Okay, so let's pull all this together. How can you actually use these ancient ideas, like right now, in your own world? Let's turn this into a simple, modern toolkit. It really boils down to 4 key pillars. Number 1, always prioritize efficiency over destruction. Number 2, base your decisions on knowledge of the competition, yes, but also of your own internal reality. 3, stay adaptable. Remember, a plan is a starting point, not a sacred text. And 4, act decisively when the opportunity is there. Seize the moment. Okay, and one last thing. This is super important. To really get Sun Tzu, you've got to avoid a few common traps. Be careful with bad translations. A lot of the cheap ones out there are based on a really flawed old text. Don't try to twist his words to fit every little situation. And most importantly, drop that war guru cliche. He wasn't obsessed with trickery for its own sake. He was a cost-benefit analyst. The key word always is efficiency. So that leaves us with one final big question to chew on. If knowing yourself is just as critical as knowing your opponent, it kind of forces us to ask, is your biggest strategic challenge really out there with the competition? Or is the most important battle Sun Tzu teaches us to fight the one against our own assumptions, our own habits, and our own blind spots?